Good afternoon. Welcome to Desh Bangla with Tania Amir live. I am delighted to have with me as my guest Mr. Bob Blackman, Member of Parliament from Harrow East. Welcome, Bob. How are you today?
Good afternoon, Tania. Well, I'm fine.
Right.
A bit cold in this country at the moment, but let's hope that the cold snap will cease.
Absolutely. No, I think winter is here.
I'm afraid so.
Bob, you made a statement on 11th of November 2025, just 2 days before your Minister for Overseas Development, Jenny Chapman, visited Bangladesh on 13th and 14th of this month. And your statement was abundantly clear how you want to see, and the British public would like to see, election which is free, fair, transparent and inclusive. Now, during the meeting with your overseas minister, our chief advisor, Dr. Yunus, for the first time admitted that Awami League, which commands about 38% plus minus percent of the voters, they will not be allowed to participate. This is contrary to his statement when he was in London earlier this year before Chatham House. He said merely their activities were not allowed, but on the issue of election, he made a commitment that it would be inclusive. Now, that makes the statement before Chatham House a verbal inexactitude, does it not?
Well, obviously, if you exclude 38% of the population of Bangladesh from being able to vote for the party of their choice, that suggests that the elections by no means are going to be free and fair. I mean, one of the problems about elections in Bangladesh has been over the years the refusal of the BNP to participate in the elections because they were not free and fair. On my visits to Bangladesh, I've always emphasised the fact to all the leaders, irrespective of which party they were from, that if you don't participate in the election, you can't complain when you don't win. But at least that was a case whereby the political parties, in this case the BNP, were choosing not to participate. But for a political party such as the Awami League to be excluded from potentially taking part in the election excludes them from any possibility of being in government. Whether the public in Bangladesh want that or not is a matter for the Bangladeshi people. But to straightforwardly exclude them means that by definition the public are not going to get the government they necessarily desire. Now, I think what should happen is every political party in Bangladesh should be able to put forward their case to the public, and then it's up to the public to vote. Now, it may well be that a party other than the Awami League actually win the elections, in which case the Awami League would be an opposition group in Parliament. Well, I think that, to me, is the sensible position that should be allowed. In a democracy, a pluralist democracy, you need both a government and an opposition. And unfortunately, what has happened in Bangladesh over the years has been the lack of opposition in Parliament to hold the government to account. And that's part and parcel of an effective democracy. Now, in terms of what that was said when the current, we call him the chief advisor, it's not quite clear really his complete role. When he was in London, despite the fact that he was invited into Parliament, I believe, by the All-Party Parliamentary Group for Bangladesh, he declined to do so. And I couldn't actually go on the visit, but members of that group went to see him at his hotel, as opposed to him coming into Parliament and being questioned perfectly reasonably and perfectly safely in the UK Parliament on what his stance was, what he was going to do. As you quite rightly said, he gave a speech and answered questions at Chatham House, which is, as you know, a very well-respected organisation, allowing free and fair discussion, and commitments were made. Now, on the basis of those commitments, most people said, this sounds as though things are going to go in the right direction. However, what we do know now is that that's not the case. And unfortunately, it would appear that either the interpretation of the words used was incorrect, or there was misspeaking, or alternatively, that was the case then, but when he returned to Bangladesh, other decisions have been made. Now, I don't know which of those it is, but pretty
Yes.
clearly, the public, as things stand, and I think the clear thing here is when we have these elections, if they're not free and fair, if the parties don't participate, then actually they have no legitimacy.
Absolutely. He had invoked Section 18 of the Anti-Terrorist Act, and Section 18 of the Act actually uses the word banning of the party. So Awami League has been identified by the government, perhaps in a subjective manner or not, as a terrorist organization. So a lot of us have been saying that his commitments that they are not banned, only their activities are temporarily held in abeyance, is not a correct statement, because the mother law they have invoked is Section 18 of Anti-Terrorist Act. So statements not before the Chatham House only, but all the statements thus far has been that only their activities are temporarily held in abeyance, but AL would be allowed. So for the first time, not before the public at large, but before the British MP and the minister, he actually admitted for the first time. If that is the case, does it taint an element of deception to his or accountability to his position, which the West and many of us felt that he's a Nobel laureate and therefore take what he says on face value? But in this case, we are seeing that some sort of a duplicity was going on.
Well, I think that where I'll go back to is obviously the position in relation to how he came into the position he's in, following the student demonstrations, and equally quite clearly cases of students being killed, and whether they were deliberately targeted or how that came to pass. That is a matter for the criminal law. And I think the key, obviously, is those responsible for those actions need to be tried in court and decisions made, but a proper court, by the way, where clearly they can give a defence, and indeed that all the facts of the case be heard. But to ban a complete political organisation on the basis of the decision making of a very small minority, as I understand it, I think is a problem, because straight away you're banning a complete political party that, after all, has been in charge of Bangladesh politically for a very long time. So that, to me, is going against the grain of what's been previously agreed, as you quite rightly say. The fact that he's making those comments in front of our minister, I mean, we wait and see what report back we get from the minister. At the moment in the UK Parliament, we haven't had a statement or any guide as to what happened at the meeting as far as our government is concerned. But clearly it is of concern, because we are not the colonial power. We're not going to be able to say, oh, you must do this or you must do that. But we are an ally of Bangladesh. We have a large Bangladeshi community living in the United Kingdom, and indeed they will all be concerned. And there's both there are people from all political parties in that Bangladeshi community, but they will all be concerned about the position in Bangladesh of their relatives and friends. What we do know, of course, is that minority groups now are being singled out for very harsh treatment indeed. In any case of beatings, houses being burnt down, and indeed temples being attacked for the Hindus and churches for the Christians, in an attempt to turn Bangladesh from being a country where all minorities are respected and safeguarded to being one where they're excluded. That is a very dangerous route to follow. It's something that's happened in certain other countries in the world, and I would be very much against a position whereby all those minorities are excluded. In a healthy democracy, you've got to allow people to follow their religion as they choose, and indeed follow the political path they choose. Now, if they choose a path of acts of violence, then those acts of violence need to be subject to the arrest of the individuals concerned and proper judicial process.
Yes, thank you for bringing that up. When you talk about minorities, some people do take the view that it's certainly the Christian churches were attacked, the Hindu temples, the Buddhist temples, the Sufis, shrines, about 200 of them.
Yes.
So the Bauls, who are the ascetic singers who preach through their music, and moderate views on Islam. Just yesterday, a Baul singer in Iran, in Manikganj, his name is Abdul Sharkar, who was arrested from a musical festivity because the clergy of one of the mosques went and complained that what he was saying or what he was singing, his statements were blasphemy, and he was arrested. So some would argue that it's not the minority, it's really the majority of the people of Bangladesh who are inclusive, who believe in the rights of every citizens to express their religious views, who are also progressive, who are inclusive of all different colors, religious, and irrespective of your gender. So the other victims we're beginning to see are women. So whenever you have a radical people in power, one of the first casualties are women and progressive people and various minorities. So at the moment, some would argue that it's not minorities anymore.
I'm 50% plus of the population of women.
Yes,
so by definition,
yes.
if they're oppressed, then it's not a pluralist society. And we've seen this obviously in Afghanistan, where
Yes.
we got to the point whereby women had become emancipated, they were being educated, they could do jobs, and with the arrival of the Taliban back in control, then those freedoms have been rapidly removed, so that women are not allowed to work, they're not allowed to be educated, they must wear the full hijab and indeed not go out unless they're accompanied. I mean, all sorts of restrictions now in Afghanistan, and that seems to be a trend in Bangladesh.
Yes, they have
Obviously, it's not
attacked
reached that
upon the
stage yet.
girls' football teams. They are not
Yeah.
allowed to play football. A lot of the young women do not feel safe even to go for walks or to do exercise in the parks. In certain areas, fatwas have been given that women's produce in the village bazaars, they should not purchase them, and women are not allowed to go into the bazaars and sell their products. And this is very, very surprising, given that Dr. Yunus partially got the Nobel Prize because of the empowerment of the rural women. And yet his silence is very loud.
Yeah, Dr. Yunus, well, he either is not being active or other forces are at work. Now, obviously, because the situation has been so chaotic before his arrival, then clearly he must call this out or decide to dispense with what he's been doing in the country. Because at the moment, obviously, he was seen to be a safe pair of hands who would ensure that there was a smooth transfer of power to a proper democratic government, and that indeed that he would stop the acts of violence that were taking place against minorities. And as you say, and there was certainly no suggestion in when he was brought in to take over, that in some shape or form that these acts against women would be perpetrated. Now, what we've got to get to, I mean, in the West, we are we've gone such a long way now towards ensuring that all people have equal opportunities, that it is complete anathema to us that we get a position whereby women are treated in this way in other countries. Now, if it's sliding into that in Bangladesh, that will be very seriously bad news, and I think not just for women, but also for Bangladesh's state in the world, because obviously we have good relations with Bangladesh. We obviously have a good economic exchange with trade and so on with Bangladesh, and it would be extremely regrettable if that is brought into question. But if we're going to go down this sort of route of very, very authoritarian Islamist type of approach, that is not going to help matters.
Yes, they're also having rallies where they're demanding the banning of the Ahmadiyya community and demanding the state should declare as to who is a Muslim and who is not a Muslim, and these people are not Muslim. So the birth of Bangladesh, as you know, was on a secular premise. We broke away from Pakistan, where sovereignty of the Pakistan belongs to the Divine Almighty, whereas we made a 180-degree U-turn where the sovereignty of the Republic belongs to the people, and people, which in a way, unlike the UK, where sovereignty belongs to Parliament, we deconstructed that further, and it belongs to the people, and it is a republican character. So one of the other concern is that I know you've been very active with the case of Chinmoy Das, and in that case, as you know, he has been charged with sedition and dishonoring the flag of Bangladesh, because apparently the flag of ISKCON was higher than the flag of Bangladesh. But this begs the question we are seeing, and this is all over in the social media, it has been reported in credible media and newspapers, that we are seeing the ISIS flag, which is so unfamiliar with Bangladeshis. It's written in a language which is not familiar. It's neither Bengali nor English. And this link with Hizb ut-Tahrir or Muslim Brotherhood, and these flags are being flown, and the flag of Bangladesh is sometimes nowhere to be seen, or the flag of Bangladesh is lower than these ISIS flags. So sometimes they're wearing the Bangladesh flag on their forehead and flying these ISIS flags over and above. And yet, we are not seeing any sort of prosecution. We are not seeing, it's kind of an impunity that is being granted. And it's, if the allegations of the case of Chinmoy Das is correct, then we are seeing this double standard where before even the National Martyrs Memorial, we call it the Shohid Minar, which is an affront to the republican character of Bangladesh and our freedom struggle, whereby we got our independence. So this is very much a concern. And I know you've expressed a lot of concern about these cases, but I wonder whether this element of the ISIS flag and the extremists who are also being allowed to operate visibly, whether that is a concern, and if so, to what degree the British parliamentarians are vocal about that?
Well, at the moment, there are very few voices in the British Parliament that are raising these particular concerns. The fact of ISIS coming forward after most people felt they'd been defeated in Syria and the Middle East, but the fact is that they have a simple, relatively simple objective, and that's to create the caliphate, from across North Africa through the Middle East and obviously into the Indian subcontinent if they could. They are truly a terrorist organisation, and of course we would in the United Kingdom look with horror on their involvement in Bangladesh. The massive difference between an organisation such as ISKCON, which is well established, by the way, in the United Kingdom as a religious organisation, obviously promoting Hinduism, which is an established world religion, and absolutely no reason why people who follow the Hindu religion should be subject to any legal action whatsoever. Now, the fact is that where we've got to, I mean, if people commit other offences, which are violent offences or whatever, that's one thing. The suggestion that in some shape or form preaching your religion could be classified as blasphemy is a very dangerous route to follow indeed. What that says is effectively there's only one religion, there's only one way of living your life, and the various different sects within Islam, as you say, the Ahmadis and others, being excluded and saying they're no longer Muslims would just be once again reprehensible. What we have to have is pluralistic society, and as you quite rightly say, when Bangladesh finally obtained its freedom as a republic, the United Kingdom assisted, so did India, to make it happen, and it was set up on the basis of a proper republic with a proper democracy and allowing people of all religions to follow their religion, and that has to be safeguarded. And I have to say that in the United Kingdom, there are times now when there has been attempts to introduce a so-called blasphemy law. We, as parliamentarians, we have been combating that absolutely, because you have to have a position whereby you can, not that you can spread hatred against people because of their religion, but we should be in a position whereby you can criticise the religion and critique the religion without being accused of being blasphemous. That to me is fundamentally a problem where that's arising. Now, one of the problems here is the radicalisation that's taking place probably of young people. And as we know, what happened originally was that students were involved in this, young people who were probably radicalised, and who they're radicalised by is a moot point. I'm not clear how that radicalisation has taken place, but it certainly happened in Bangladesh. It happens in other parts of the world. Now, where we need to get to is that all these charges, against those that are accused of sedition or blasphemy, they should be dismissed. And there's no question about that. There is no place in modern society for those particular charges. When we go back in the United Kingdom's history, 400 or 500 years, if you were the wrong type of Christian, you potentially could get burnt at the stake. Well, we've moved on a long way from that, so that we don't just tolerate, but we embrace people of all religions, provided they're not preaching hatred against people of other religions. Now, I think that's what should happen in Bangladesh. Bangladesh has got a tremendous opportunity for economic growth. It's got a tremendous opportunity for being a key player in the world. There's a large population, and obviously a lot of work is being done to help and assist people to improve their economic outlook. But what you can't have is this fundamentalist religion starting to impose its will on that, because that's going to be a backward step in society. As you say, if you're going to exclude 50% of the population from playing any part of the economic capability of the country, that's stupidity, in my judgment. There'll be those that want to be home keepers and bring up their family and so on. That's fine. But most people want to try and fulfill their potential.
Absolutely. The ethos based on which Bangladesh was born, secular, cultural, identity is something that I'd like to discuss with you.
Sure.
We need to go for a break.
पिछले 20 वर्षों से ये शोभा यात्रा बड़ी ही धूमधाम से चल रही है।
ये जो हम मानते हैं कि सीधे आदमी को लोग काटते, वो काटने का हिसाब हमारा हिसाब है। हम भले आज सीधे हैं मगर पूर्व कुछ गलती की है, उसका दंड आया है। कोई गुनहगार नहीं है, हमें दुख देने वाला संसार में कोई है ही नहीं। हमारी ही गलती के फल हमें भुगतने पड़ते हैं, किसी का दोष है ही नहीं।
श्री अयोध्या धाम, जो कि वैकुंठ का हृदय कहा जाता है, आज अत्यंत प्रफुल्लित है।
ने श्री राम जन्मभूमि मंदिर को समर्पित 6 स्मारक डाक टिकट किए जारी। विभिन्न देशों की ओर से जारी डाक टिकटों का एल्बम भी जारी। पीएम ने कहा, डाक टिकट ऐतिहासिक घटनाओं को भावी पीढ़ियों तक पहुंचाने का है माध्यम।
उसके बाद नीतीश कुमार के सामने कोई चारा नहीं बचा था कि वो इस सरकार से जो है वो आरजेडी से अपना गठबंधन तोड़ लें।
कि सभी भारतीय, चाहे वो देश में हैं विदेश में हैं, अपने देश के लिए सच्चे हृदय से काम करें।
बाल साहब, ये जिदा ये विचारा दसन दिया कि असी गुरु नानक देव जी तो पहला श्री रामचंद्र जी महाराज इन्हों के गुरु सन, तो फिर बड़ा वड्डा गैप पै गया। फिर ये गुरु नानक देव जी आए, उस तो पहले 10 गुरु साहब ते बाबा राम सिंह, तो हुण इन्हों का गुरु ठाकुर दलीप सिंह। तो ये इन्हें प्रोसैस के बाद विचारे इन्हों तां भी अकल नहीं आई।
ਤੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਸੋਚਦੇ ਹੋਗੇ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਸੱਜਣ ਕਿੱਥੇ ਗਏ, ਆਪਾਂ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਦਿਖਾ ਦਿੰਦੇ ਜੀ ਕਿੱਥੇ ਗਏ। ਯੂਕੇ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਆਪਣੇ ਮੁੰਡਿਆਂ ਨੇ ਮਿਹਨਤ ਬਹੁਤ ਕੀਤੀ ਆ ਕੇ ਇੰਡੀਆ ਤੋਂ, ਖਾਸ ਤੌਰ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੈਨਾਂ ਚਲਾਉਣ 'ਚ। ਡੀਪੀਡੀ ਵੈਨਾਂ, ਹਰਮੀਜ਼ ਵਾਲੀਆਂ ਵੈਨਾਂ, ਜੋ ਐਮਾਜ਼ੋਨ ਵਾਲੀਆਂ ਵੈਨਾਂ ਜੋ ਹੈਗੀਆਂ, ਉਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਕਾਫੀ ਕਾਮਯਾਬ ਰਹੇ ਆ। ਆਪਣੇ ਮੁੰਡਿਆਂ ਨੇ ਕਾਫੀ ਕੰਮ ਖਿੱਚਿਆ ਉਹਦੇ 'ਚ। ਮਿਹਨਤ ਕਰਨੀ ਬਹੁਤ ਵਧੀਆ ਚੀਜ਼ ਹੈ ਜੀ।
With Brexit comes new laws and changes. Make sure you have the right help to navigate your way through. GLS Solicitors is led by award-winning solicitor Harjap Singh Bungal. GLS Solicitors, when the experts need an expert.
जामवंत के बचन सुहाए,
सुने हनुमंत हृदय अति भाए।
तब लगी मोहि पर खेहु तुम भाई,
सही दुख कंद मूल फल
सियावर रामचंद्र पद जय शरण। जय जय सिया राम शंकर हरि ओम। दास तेरे की बेनती रित कर परगास दास तेरे की बेनती रित कर परगास दास तेरे की बेनती रित कर परगास।
প্রিয় দর্শক শ্রোতা, আপনাদেরকে আমন্ত্রণ জানাচ্ছি দেশ বাংলার উইথ তানিয়া আমির লাইভ। আমার সাথে অতিথিরা থাকবেন পৃথিবীর বিভিন্ন প্রান্ত থেকে, যারা দক্ষিণ এশিয়া নিয়ে চলমান পরিস্থিতি নিয়ে আলোচনা করবেন, বিশেষ করে বাংলাদেশ। তার সাথে থাকবে আরও অনেক চমক। তাই আপনারা এমই টিভি দেখবেন, your channel of choice. We just returned from a break. Thank you for being with us. Today on our show we have with us Right Honourable Bob Blackman MP. Welcome back, Bob.
Thank you.
Right. So before the break we were talking about the rise of the Islamists in Bangladesh, and one of the key factor is that Dr. Yunus, when he went to America before the UN, he had introduced as the mastermind of this student movement, which you call as a student movement. Although we are beginning to have evidence as some of the Islamist parties, Jamaat Islam, Shibir, who are claiming that they had led the movement and that they were there guising as students. And one of his advisor, who is now member of his cabinet, he had introduced him then as the mastermind, and his allegation is that he is a member or leading the Hizb ut-Tahrir movements in Bangladesh, and one of the secretaries in the Home Affairs. There's also allegation of links with Hizb ut-Tahrir, which is a banned organization both in UK and in Bangladesh. So we come back to the chief advisor. He is making his home and collecting people who have links with not just extremist position, but Hizb ut-Tahrir is seen as a ground where they support whether it's Islamic Brotherhood, Muslim Brotherhood, or ISIS, various other organizations. And that is just staring all of us on the face. Why isn't that being addressed by our development partners?
Well, it's a good question. Obviously, Hizb ut-Tahrir is a banned organisation, as you say, in the UK, and that follows a view that they are a threat to cause hatred towards people of other religions in the United Kingdom, and in fact, they were preaching violence against other people, which is why they're banned. The Muslim Brotherhood at the moment is not a banned organisation. Strangely, in my view, it should be. But it's not. I have lobbied long and hard of the UK government, both the current government and the previous government, to prescribe the Muslim Brotherhood. And one of the problems here is that there is this network of different extremist organisations who are out to terrorise and force a position of both conversions to their chosen religion, but also spreading hatred and violence against people of other religions. So we have a complex situation in both the United Kingdom and other parts of the West, where this network of organisations exist. Our security and intelligence services are obviously working all hours that are sent in order to identify these organisations, to disrupt them wherever possible, and if necessary, prescribe them as organisations that it would be illegal to belong to them. Now, as you say, this so-called leader of the students, if he is a member of Hizb ut-Tahrir, then the reality is, in the United Kingdom, he would be subject to arrest as being a member of a banned organisation. That suggests that that Bangladesh needs to get its act together in terms of determining who these terrorist organisations are, and if their leaders are part of those organisations, then they were the ones that need to be banned. And here we are in a position whereby, as you have elegantly described, you've got one political party being banned, and then extremist organisations who preach violence against other people of other religions who are acting in power. Well, that can't be right.
Well, that's kind of the position that we have at the moment in Bangladesh.
And that needs to be called out. I mean, I think what I'd like to see is the clear evidence that the leaders are members of these organisations, in which case we can and should, in the United Kingdom and in the United States, call these people out and these organisations and say, well, they must not be involved. Because otherwise, we're not going to have a democracy in Bangladesh.
Well, one of the problems is, of course, that since these are banned organizations, so there is no, if you like, a membership form that we can Google and see that they're members of that. No. But when these allegations have come across in the media and elsewhere, what is very interesting, the concerned individual have not denied it. There are photos of before and after what they have done. So some of these allegations in certain media have been circulating. And what is interesting is in the Facebook post of this individual who is leader of the student movement and now in the advisor of Dr. Yunus, the posts were to the effect of attacking our neighbors, with whom we have friendly relationships. So those are serious offences, and it was taken off the social media, faced with so much criticism. But this seems to be happening from within the government itself.
So are we talking about then attacking India?
Yes, and certain parts of the territory, particularly the northeast. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, obviously, one of the concerns here is this mirrors what has been going on in Pakistan for a very long time. There are terrorist bases in areas which Pakistan administers that create terrorist entities, and then those entities get involved in attacking India in particularly violent ways. The risk is for Bangladesh that the same thing will happen, that terrorist activities will take place across the border. And given that India and Bangladesh have enjoyed, up until now, much more friendly relations, all the disputes on borders had been agreed between the Bangladeshi government and the Indian government, this just risks resuscitating those. And it's in Bangladesh's interest, and India's interest, of course, that the countries cooperate peacefully together. Now, in the United Kingdom, certainly previously, the ambassadors for the two countries, or the high commissioners for the two countries, would cooperate. They'd hold joint meetings, seminars, and indeed invite politicians from all parties to talk about what, the problems that are faced. One of the problems, obviously, in Bangladesh is the treatment of the refugees from Myanmar and what happens to the Rohingya there, because they were given safe passage effectively to Hamid Bazaar and then assisted, and that's developed over a period of time to be a very big city, effectively, in Bangladesh. It's not clear to me what the attitude is now of the interim government towards the fate of those people, because obviously the Rohingya are very much an endangered people from Myanmar, and they've been the subject of brutal attacks from the military in Myanmar. And this is just another symptom of the problem, that Bangladesh has very kindly looked after those refugees for an extended period of time. What is the interim government going to do about that? Because there must be a risk that they might be saying, "Oh, we're going to send you back." In which case,
this is a very complex issue because we've had tension between our army and the government in the middle vis-a-vis a corridor, which was even to give aid and to the against the government of Myanmar, the Liberation Army, and the Liberation Army do not really like the Rohingyas very much. So we were, in a sense, Bangladesh was getting into a position where we are supporting the Myanmar Liberation Army. We are also housing the Rohingyas, and we're just in a flux, which again goes against the Myanmar authority. And I believe our ambassador was sent back. So we certainly cannot be in a position where we are, with all our neighbors, we are getting into dispute. And that is a very sensitive issue, and we need to see how it pans itself out. Now, coming back to, you talked about the Awami League. Of course, there has been a trial, and everyone wants to see those who are responsible to be, there should be due process and they should be tried. Interestingly, all the allegations of corruptions and siphoning of money, we still don't have any legal process or any conviction. But of course, the Prime Minister, Sheikh Hasina, was convicted just a few days ago under the International Crimes Tribunal Act for crimes against humanity. And one of the charges against her, one of the ground was that she called, used the word Razakar, which means collaborator, those who collaborated against the Bangladeshi people and collaborated with the Pakistani military junta, which unleashed a genocide upon the unarmed civilian people of Bangladesh. Now, and she has been dished out life sentence because of that. So, and this also begs the question, because Razakar or collaborator is a word often used even by researchers who are researching into the role of the collaborators. And at that time, Jamaat-e-Islam, which is a political party still operating in Bangladesh, opposed the birth of Bangladesh itself and collaborated with the Pakistani military junta. And there were auxiliary forces where their members were there. So that is a stigma that has never gone away. So how does it, and to call someone a collaborator is not a criminal offense in Bangladesh. Yet, we see that the Prime Minister, Sheikh Hasina, was charged, one of the count was that, and the punishment is life imprisonment on that. And some of the other counts, she has been punished to be, for death penalty has been given as the punishment. No. So, the government claims, of course, that the case was conducted as per international standard. Yet, all the international organizations, including Amnesty and Human Rights Watch, they have critiqued that this has fallen far short of the international standards. And some would argue this has even fallen short of the domestic standards that Bangladesh has observed so far.
Yeah.
What's your view on it, if any?
Well, obviously, as soon as you try someone in their absence, then there's the issue that you're not getting the capability of either hearing their side of the story or cross-examining their side of the story. Now, I can completely understand why Sheikh Hasina chose not to return to Bangladesh to face this so-called trial because of safety, for personal safety. I mean, she fled following the coup and following the riots, and obviously did so on the basis that she was advised that she was not safe to remain. Now, clearly, to any form of international standards, any form of law, and by the way, Bangladeshi law essentially is broadly based on UK law, and the process and procedures are historically similar to the United Kingdom. So we would expect a similar standard to be applied. Clearly, those standards have not been applied in this case. Now, the Bangladeshi prosecutors have obviously taken a fair amount of time to try and seek out evidence of alleged crimes. There are clearly clear concerns about what has happened to some of the finances involved in Bangladesh, and there are clear issues to account for. But I think this is hard. This is a rapid case that's hardly been proceeded with in a reasonable fashion, and it's a peremptory verdict. And leading, I thought she'd actually been sentenced to death, not life imprisonment.
Yes, in the other counts.
Yeah.
So inter alia with the other counts, this was one of the count where she was sentenced to life imprisonment for using the word collaborator, Razakar. So, which is not even an offence in Bangladesh. So it just gives you.
I mean, just imagine what would happen to most politicians in the West if they've used words that were deemed to be unreasonable, that you end up sentenced to life imprisonment for it. It just doesn't bear thinking about.
Yes.
At the end of the day, people have to be free to speak their minds, and as long as they're not preaching hatred, as I say, against other people, then what they say should be taken as fair comment.
Yes. One of the reforms that the government has done, and I'll come back to the trial in a minute, is the cyber security laws. And in the cyber security law with hate speech, they have brought in effective blasphemy laws as well. So as we are modernizing, we use the term cyber security and so on, but the old vestige of blasphemy laws seems to be traveling with it under this government.
Yeah, well, that's right.
Coming back to the trial of Sheikh Hasina, of course, they have appointed, as soon as Dr. Yunus took over, a new prosecutor, and there is also a lot of controversy around that because the lawyer who was appointed as the prosecutor, he was the defense counsel for Jamaat Islam, and at the time when he was appointed, he still had some of the cases pending. Of course, he had to give it away to some other lawyers. And the judges who are appointed for this tribunal also all afresh. And some of the judges do not have the qualification or the eligibility to sit in this tribunal, because the tribunal says those who are eligible to be a judge before the High Court is eligible here. Now, one of them is retired. Some claim he's 73 years old, and the retirement age is 67 for High Court judges. So some of them were brought in as High Court judge for less than a week, and on the 5th or 6th days, they were then transferred to the International Crimes Tribunal. One of them have never had any experience of judging before. So this is their first case.
Yes, I mean, what you don't have is your first case, such a high-profile controversial case.
Yes.
In the United Kingdom, I think the age range is up to 75. I think it is for judges, retirement age. And actually, one of the benefits of judges having a bit more experience, a bit longer in the tooth, as it were, as judges, is that they have a better appreciation of the law. They have obviously more experience in trying cases, and clearly this has all the hallmarks of a show trial, and just going through the motions with a predetermined verdict, and as you say, bizarre verdicts and punishments for things that really wouldn't be offences anywhere else, and actually probably arguably are not offences in Bangladesh anyway, according to the law of Bangladesh. So I think from that perspective, this whole so-called trial is brought into disrepute, and therefore the verdicts have to be considered with a spoonful of a very large spoonful of doubt.
Yes, it's rather sad because this law, when it was legislated back in 1973, I think Bangladesh was the first country which has had a permanent court for crime against humanity, war crimes, and so on. And international jurists had come to Bangladesh to see how we had done it. So the dream or idea to set up an international court, it was conceived in Dhaka. Which led to the enough countries ratifying, and we have the International Criminal Court today. And a lot of the legislation, the definition of offences in the war crimes, we included offences of rape, which was not included before. And it's nice to see that the International Court also adopted that. So Bangladesh was ahead of its time. And in this court, we successfully tried our war criminals. Not in other countries where they have transitional justice, a huge amount of money, thousands of dollars were spent, but no result. Here we did get result. And now it seems to be a mirroring effect. So those who were involved in war crimes and crime against humanity seems to be now trying the Prime Minister and the Awami League for committing crime against humanity. So in a sense, the party which was responsible for liberation is now being tried, and the daughter of the father of the nation is being tried. So it's kind of mirroring, because she had put the war criminals on trial, and conviction was there. So
it's ironic, isn't it? And actually, this is only yesterday was the 80th anniversary of the start of the Nuremberg trials, where the Nazis, 24 Nazis, were put on trial. But that trial took 11 months. They went into infinite detail about all the crimes against humanity and war crimes that have been committed. This is part and parcel of the problem of this type of activity, where, frankly, all the issues are not being examined properly. The evidence is not by no means clear, and therefore the verdict of the court has to be questionable, to put it mildly.
Yes, now, of course, the trial took place in a historical period of 3 or 4 months. Everything and conviction was dished out. So we are running out of time. I'd love to continue the discussion, but if you have any last words on this topic.
Yes, well, I think what I've called for, as you know, is for free and fair elections in Bangladesh. It's going to be tough to have proper free and fair elections, because over the years there have been constant complaints about the Electoral Commission, effectively, that runs the election, and whether they've administered free and fair elections, and on all sides. But the way out of this has to be that all parties are unable to put their case to the electorate and then we see the results of those elections, it can't be that we have fundamentalist individuals or organisations coming to power and wrecking the situation in Bangladesh, where improvements have been made, and we can argue about whether the merits or not of Sheikh Hasina as a prime minister, and indeed all the other political parties at different times, and they've been at odds all the time, as we know. But what we do need to see, I believe, is obviously taking control and saying, look, we must have all political parties involved in these elections. We must ensure that the electorate have the opportunity to vote for the people that they choose, and we must not slide towards an absolute control from one political party or another, because that is the way of enabling democracy to flourish, and indeed for the long-term benefit of all Bangladeshi citizens. And above all else, whoever forms that government has got to come in and make sure that the rights of minorities are fully protected and they're not abused by fundamentalist organisations. That can't be allowed to happen. So the free, secular system that was set up in Bangladesh, when we were all pleased to see Bangladesh obtain its freedom from Pakistan, must be truly safeguarded.
Yes, two of the legislations that the government did perhaps stands in the way. One is an indemnity that has been given. So while they're trying Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina, it also begs the question, how could there have been an investigation, because a blanket indemnity has been given for those who committed crimes, burnt 400 police stations, killed them and hung them upside down. So there is clear impunity. And our advisor, who claims to come from the student movement for youth and sports, he is now training over 8,000 young people with firearms. Some people describe it as a militia. Yet when he was interviewed, he said, well, it's just self-defense, like karate or judo, things like that. So there seems to be a lot of firearms coming in, and these weaponization of various groups. To what extent one could have free and fair election under those circumstances is a concern, given with the fact that a total impunity has been given those who killed, maimed people from 5th till the 15th of last year, August. And of course, since then, although no official indemnity has not been given, but there seems to be impunity not to go after them. Those who are
the
attacking.
key is how many of those people have been arrested?
None.
How many of them have faced?
None whatsoever.
Well, that's the point.
In fact, an indemnity has been given that the government will not ask questions.
Well, that tells you all you need to know, that basically there is a position whereby one faction effectively is being allowed to run riot.
Right, Honourable Bob Blackburn, we've totally run out of time, but promise me you'll come back in the future.
Indeed.
Okay,
Indeed.
Thank you again. It's been my honour and a pleasure to have you on my show. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Viewers, thank you for remaining with Desh Bangla. Hope to see you soon next week. Joy Bangla.